All right, recording has started. I'm going to share my screen here. This is the monthly cybersecurity webinar. Velox Systems talking about endpoint security and why antivirus isn't enough. So I'm going to take a few moments here, go through kind of what antivirus is, what it misses, and what the newer technologies are that can catch that. And we'll go through a couple of examples. So again, this is our monthly cybersecurity webinar. Sometimes we'll have 10, 15, 20 people. Sometimes it'll be just a few. But I welcome everyone to find that link. It's going to be in our Facebook page. You can get to it from our website to sign up for the next one, which will be in September. The date for the one in September, Christine, if you remind me, I believe it looks like the 10th of September. It'll be at 9 o'clock. So this month, we're looking at antivirus and endpoint security. So we've always had antivirus. Maybe it's a question you have. We've always used it. So what's wrong? So we want to look at, again, what antivirus is and how it blocks attacks. What are kind of new, more modern attack methods that are out there that we need to protect against? And then what are your options to, in fact, protect against those newer threats? So what is antivirus? You guys probably use a couple logos up there that you might recognize from recent or distant past. Whenever I see Norton, I know they're currently in use, but I always think of the 90s. And then more recently, probably McAfee and Bitdefender have come on the scene as kind of the top level of most antivirus products. So it's a software designed to detect, prevent, and remove known malware by scanning your hard drive for malicious signatures on computers and devices. So it looks for files. And so if you download a file that has a virus on it, your antivirus at some point is going to scan that either while you're downloading it or maybe once a day. And it's going to catch those. It's going to quarantine them and block them and delete them so that they can't be accessed by your system, like by you accidentally or another piece of software, to actually trigger some sort of malicious program. So that's what antivirus does. Certainly handy to have something like that on all of our endpoints. We want to make sure that our files are being scanned as they change and our information gets moved back and forth from your computer to the internet all the time. But here's how it actually protects you. So this is, I apologize for the crude graphic. I'll give a quick shout out to IntelliPete for the image. But new viruses are basically created every day. So every day there's people out there that are creating a virus that's going to send information, or it's going to lock down and encrypt your computer until you pay somebody, or it's going to just delete files for the fun of it. Some viruses are recreational, but most are built by the hackers, by the attackers, to generate some sort of revenue, some sort of cost to you, to them, from you to them. So the way that antivirus software works is there's these big companies out there, McAfee, Norton, Kaspersky, Bitdefender, that are constantly, they've got a piece of software on hundreds of thousands of computers across the planet. Anyone who's bought their service, or maybe is running the trial of their service. And so that all those pieces of software out there in the world are always watching for viruses and new viruses and kind of identifying files back to the software developer, back to McAfee or Bitdefender or someone else, to analyze. And when they analyze those and they find that one is in fact a virus, they'll catalog that in their database. They'll say, hey, this is what the file looks like. This is how it typically comes through. This is what its kind of bit by bit signature looks like. And it uploads that to a database. And then your antivirus product on your computer reads that database every day and scans all the files on the computer, runs it against that database to see if any of the files on your computer match the virus definitions that are in that database globally. So that's how antivirus products work. So your computer is scanning for viruses based on a known list of viruses that's out there in the world. But if a virus, you look at this number 3 here, if a virus is not in the antivirus database yet, which means somebody just created it this morning, or it's a delay until it gets onto the database and no one knows about it yet, or it's not well defined, then the antivirus software is powerless to act based on that traditional scanning against a database scenario. This worked great back in the early 2000s. Internet was a little bit slower. It was pretty easy to get a list. Like you only, as an antivirus software company, you only had, maybe a handful of people that got infected by something that's crippling before you found out about it and protected everyone else. Internet moves a lot faster today. So this method of protecting against cybersecurity attacks isn't enough. And so that's why we titled this thing Antivirus Isn't Enough. This is the traditional way. In the last, so antiviruses, what do they catch? They catch malicious software, we call them malware. They catch Trojans, which are things that look like good software but aren't, and are actually going to do something malicious that you probably won't know about even when you open it. They can kind of hang out for a while. Obviously, the name comes from the Trojan horse. The Greeks, I think, gave to the city of Troy. They didn't know it was a problem until the Greeks came out and, destroyed them in the night. Traditional viruses, which is, a program that does malicious things on your computer, similar to malware. But again, only those which this software has cataloged at some point in the past. So this is what antivirus catches. What it misses are activities that happen on your computer. Okay, these are behaviors. These are things that you or someone else or a piece of software can do on the computer. That's not a file. It's not a signature in a file. It's a process. Several clicks with the mouse or commands in a script or something like that that behaves in a way that antivirus won't catch. So like remote access. We use remote access every day. We're an IT company. All of our clients have our remote access software on their computer. That's a normal behavior of a computer solution, of an IT solution. Unintended code execution. So this is like if you click on a file that maybe doesn't match the signature of a virus, but it is going to do something bad, antivirus has no way of catching that. And it's something that like you as a user can click on and execute. Like you download something from an email that you think your friend sent you, a video, something like that, and you run it. Antivirus can't really protect against that. Legitimate application used for malicious purposes. So this is kind of a cool one, and I actually have an example. There was a big string of attacks in the last probably half a dozen years where people would get Word documents. I get Word documents all the time from people, resumes, forms to fill out, contracts, that sort of thing. And I go in, and if I open those Word documents indiscriminately without really verifying who they're from and what's in them, Microsoft Word, totally legitimate application. It's going to launch a document. But one of the features of Microsoft Office is within that document, I can write scripts. And maybe some of you guys have done that before. You've written scripts within your Word document or your Excel document to help calculate things or autofill things, kind of do some automated tasks within the document. Totally legitimate features. But those can be used, even though they're legitimate features, those can be used to get into to run nasty commands that will destroy, export, hold for ransom items and parts of your computer. So an example of that, I want to run through real quick. If I open up Microsoft Word and I start a new document, okay, I can say, hey, this is an innocent document. Cool. I can save this and send it to somebody. It's going to be completely innocuous. They're going to open it up in Word and they're going to see the same thing. However, if I go up here into this developer section and I click on macros and I want to create a new macro, okay? Delete that and delete that. All right, I'm going to create a new macro, a brand new document. I'm going to call it example. It now opens up this developer section where I can actually write code. Now, I don't know how to write code. I'm just an accountant, right? I don't do software development. So what I'm going to do, if I want to be a hacker, if I'm an aspiring hacker, I'm going to go over to ChatGPT. I'm going to say, hey, write me a Visual Basic auto run script that will open PowerShell when I launch the document. And so it's going to So ChatGPT will actually build this for me. I'm going to be more specific here. I'm going to say, write a macro for Word. And it's funny, last time I did this, I'll actually pull it up over here. I don't have that. Let's see. So it's writing a script for me that's actually going to do exactly what I asked it to do. So I don't need to know like all of this stuff. I don't need to know how to code. I can go to ChatGPT. I can have it write a code for me, and I can paste that right in here. Okay, now I've written an example a little bit earlier, so I'm going to show you guys that, exactly what this will look like. Now, what's cool is my computer has advanced endpoint security on it, and so it actually won't launch, but I'm going to show you kind of what it would look like. Anyway, here's my innocent Word document. I'm going to launch it, and you're going to see briefly. Yeah, so nothing happens, which is great. But if I didn't have an endpoint antivirus or an endpoint security tool on here that protected me against this, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you'd actually see that PowerShell script open up and it could start to run. It can do anything at once on my computer because, again, I put it right in here. So that's how you can use a Microsoft Word document to execute code on your computer or send that to somebody for them to execute code on their computer just by opening the document. So that's one of the things antivirus won't protect against. The other piece is data encryption. So if files start getting encrypted on your hard drive, antivirus isn't watching for that. It's not protecting against that. That's a legitimate feature of Microsoft Windows. It allows you to encrypt files on your computer system. Bad software and malware can use that feature in Windows to encrypt files on your file system, but you don't know how to decrypt them. So they will take that key, that decryption key, store it, and then charge you $1 million to get it back. The other thing that antivirus doesn't protect against is what we call lateral movement. That's when someone gets control of your computer and then they start going out into the network, into different network shares or on servers or trying to log into other people's computers. That behavior is something that antivirus doesn't catch. And then, like I mentioned before, the key piece of an antivirus software database is that it has seen the virus before. We have ChatGPT. We've got a lot of money that's going into cyber attacks. It's a very lucrative industry. There are hundreds of thousands of people, at least globally, building this stuff every day. So the amount of new viruses that come out every day, every week, often, frequently, is accelerating exponentially. And so these antivirus databases just can't keep up. We need something better. So again, modern attacks, remote access. I described these all earlier. Remote access, taking a legitimate application and using it for bad, like the Microsoft Word example. Traveling across the network, trying to log into other things once you've gained access to a computer, and zero-day attacks, which are new viruses that an antivirus product can't catch in time. These are all kind of modern attack methods that we need to prevent against. So what's the solution? Well, for one, it's a multifaceted solution. But the best thing you can do is move from just antivirus to what we call an endpoint detection and response tool. It's called an EDR. A lot of security companies have built these now. And that is where it goes kind of beyond just scanning files to actually watching that behavior. So we're using now machine learning to watch for people trying to access things on the network that they haven't done before. So if you've got a user in accounting and they've been there for 3 years and they've never once tried to access an admin network share on the server, and all of a sudden they're trying to do that, this endpoint detection response tool knows that behavior history of that user. It sees a new behavior that could potentially be malicious happening on the computer, and it starts watching that, alerting that, and locking things down. Again, suspicious PowerShell activity. So this is like the example I showed with Microsoft Word. I have, as I mentioned before, I have an EDR on my computer. Everyone here, all of our clients do. And it's watching for things like, is Microsoft Word trying to do something it shouldn't do? Because Microsoft Word is a legitimate application, but if we can use it for nefarious reasons, we want a piece of software, we want a tool watching that behavior on our computer all the time to catch that. Unusual file access patterns. Again, this is looking at the common behavior of the person in front of the computer, and it's lining that up against what it's seeing right now on the computer. And if those are different in a potentially nefarious or malicious way, the endpoint detection response tool is going to catch that. Anomalous process creation. That's the idea of one application starting another. So similar to number 2 there, where it says suspicious PowerShell activity. Anomalous process creations like any other process. So Word can also access Excel. It can access your printers. It can access your email and send out email, that sort of thing. So if it's one process trying to create another process on your computer, we want to watch for those behaviors. And then persistence mechanisms. This would be the installation of like a remote software tool that maybe wasn't on there before. So if TeamViewer suddenly shows up on a computer, we want a piece of software that's going to catch that. If a new like repeated task starts running on your computer that wasn't there before, we want to know about that. We want to see that. So we use software within our firm to look for all these things and catch them before they become a problem. So that's what you can do like on the computer itself. There's also you as a user sitting in front of your computer and all of your employees that use a computer every day. Big piece of that is user training. We recommend phishing simulations too. And what this does, it gets everyone in your organization just kind of in the mindset of like, what are we looking for, right? What's happening? What are the scenarios that I could be attacked with a phishing email, using a bad wireless network, maybe that's out there at a coffee shop or in someone's home or a hotel that's easy to exploit. It's kind of like, what are those everyday activities that I do that someone could use to exploit, make vulnerable my system and compromise my system? And what does that look like when I'm attacked, right? I mean, we want people to be aware through repetitive training of like, what do I see on my computer? Does my mouse cursor move on its own? Am I hearing clicks in the background? Are programs popping up that I didn't start? Maybe if you used to ignore those, having some sort of kind of regular training would allow users to say, hey, that's actually new. That's different. That's like what I saw in the video yesterday. This might be, a problem. Obviously, email attacks are a great thing to train on. It's probably the most prominent method of attack. We want to keep our guard up and just keep the guard up of our whole organization. So a good way to do that is to have just regular training. Everyone's enrolled. Everyone's part of it. And everyone's talking the same language. So beyond that, so this is a big circle. You can do a lot to protect your organization. I covered just right here. So antivirus and endpoint detection and response. And then a little bit over here on this blue side, the security awareness training, the phishing simulation. These are probably the easiest ways to protect yourself and your organization against cyber attack, is to implement just those 2 things. So it gets you probably, I don't know the percentage, but probably 70% of the way there. The rest of this stuff are more advanced tools that you would use if you're kind of a larger organization with some maybe high cost intellectual property or high financial exposure to cyber attack, that you want to implement these because they become more costly. So it has to be worth it. And you have to evaluate that cost to benefit ratio. If you want to talk more about any of that stuff, certainly you'll get a link here at the end of the webinar for a 10-minute, 30-minute conversation with me to just kind of chat about that. But just leaving here, the simple things that you can do, like anyone could do, is go find a true EDR solution for your organization and to get the user training and security awareness training. There's a lot of companies out there that do that. We can certainly help you with that too here at Velox. So after that, I just want to make sure we have about 10 minutes here. So right on time for some question and answer. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. So that's the end of our webinar that we'll make publicly available in our learning library. I'm going to stop the recording so we can have maybe some more Q&A times here if any of those questions come up. So hang on a second.